Welcome to the Bioptimizers Awesome Health Podcast. And now here's your host, Wade T. Lightheart.
What is Awesome Health? It's actually an acronym that stands for air, water, exercise, sunshine, optimizers, mental beliefs and attitudes, and education. These are the pillars of peak health, and my team and I have created a free 12-week course that you can use to transform. Each day, you'll get a written and video lesson delivered to your inbox. Everything is covered from the foundations of digestion to advanced alternative therapies few people know about. And again, it's 100% free. Just go to bioptimizers.com. That's bioptimizers.com. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's Wade T. Lightheart from Bioptimizers with another edition of the Awesome Health Podcast. I just got back for some travels, and I'm excited to be back here in the studio doing some interviews. And we're going to talk about an important topic today, and that's cravings, sugar, and inflammation. I don't know about you, but I've dealt with all three of those things. And you know how that craving comes, you get the sugar fix, and then the next day you wake up with the inflammation. Why do I look so bad? How come my eyes are all swollen? Well, the variety of reasons of why we fall into this cycle of craving and inflammation. Sugar is a big culprit. And today we have none other than Jenn Edden, who is the founder of the Sugar Freedom Method. She is the author of Woman Unleashed and co-author of Wall Street Journal best-selling book, Born to Rise. Jenn was also regularly contributing health expert on Channel 12 News when she lived in New York, which she is now transplanted to Flagstaff, Arizona, one of the beautiful spots in the world. I've been there. I love it. If you haven't been there, try it out. Jenn's zone of genius is teaching women how to kick and manage their sugar addiction while bringing down massive inflammation in their mind, body, and spirit so they can look and feel their best, most confident, vibrant self. Jenn has gathered her wisdom from healing herself, always the best advocates, of sugar addiction, and from 19 plus years of being a holistic health coach. Jenn, welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Wade. I'm really honored. I love what you're up to. So
all right, so let's do a little background. Let's okay.
Don't do it.
So you've been doing this for 20 years, but what got you to start dealing with the sugar craving addiction or inflammation cycle? How did you get into that? Tell me the story.
Let's go there real quick. So I come from a family history of addiction. Yeah. And so parents, anxiety, depression, diagnosed bipolar, I have seen it all. And so what I'm finding is that you can be predisposed versus my husband, who doesn't seem to have this same pull that I had growing up for the sugar. Because as you know, sugar has many components. It's not just that it's addictive, but it's also, right, there's an emotional component there.
If it was invented today, it'd be a class 5 drug with cocaine and heroin. There's physiological response is drug-like. So I think we ought to really classify it for what it is.
Thank you very much. It's the truth. And different people have different sensitivities, just the way with alcohol, right? Different people can handle it differently. And so I always say, gauge for yourself. Well, for me, I was a class 5. Once I started, my clients talk this way also. There's like a light switch effect. Not anymore, but it used to be once you start, it's called game over. You start with chocolate, you then go to the fridge, you're then working on the cookies, the ice cream. I mean, it's just, and then you're into the cereal. It doesn't matter. It all turns to sugar. So as a kid, and even I find this now with people who come see me with moms, it's written off as normal. And so it was normal, so to speak, for me until I started getting into my late teens, into my 20s. And I was not feeling well. And I knew that those things were the problem, but I couldn't stop. And I always say, that's when you know there's an issue, when you're harming yourself and you're aware and you can't stop the behavior. And so what you don't know, because I didn't write it there, is I went to medical school. I did not love it. And so I left that. But prior to that, I have a biochemistry background, thinking that would be smart to have for medical school. And so here I had all this knowledge, didn't love it, but knew I wasn't feeling well. And I did what most people do. I hire all the doctors, And there's nothing wrong with that. The naturopaths, the acupuncturists, all the tinctures, the homeopaths. And I'm like, something is still off. And that is really where the sugar freedom method came from. It was me figuring out my own health conditions and using all the knowledge from all the people I had hired, recycled it into what I call a 6-step plan that truly, when you follow it, it unhooks you from the drug. And so I literally, people say, where did it come from? I said, well, it saved my life. And over the last 20 years, I have been formulating this to get it where it is now. And I have a company that helps people, and it's trademarked, and I have certified coaches, and it saved my life. So I was what you call, I had normalized sugar addiction as, it's just something I love. And I'm like, but I'm not well. I had conditions that wouldn't heal. A hemorrhoidal condition. I had locked jaw. I would sweat. I mean, it's all the stuff people just normalize. Low energy, near ulcer, and doctors, medication. I'm like, And so, and here I am at almost 53 kids. I've got none of it for quite a long time. And so now we teach it to anyone that wants to know it. And it's a gift.
It's really powerful. Before we get into the method, kind of fly over the surface of that. What are the consequences and maybe accepted socialization of sugar addiction? So, for example, you go to the doctor. When I was a kid, he handles you a lollipop. You go to the barber as a little kid, they hand you some sugar. You have your birthday, you're given sugar. If you're going for a treat after the sports game, you get some sugar, liquid sugar. Like your favorite cereal advertised is full of sugar. So there's a systematic socialization of sugar consumption. And there's the other thing I want to dive into, because I'm opening up a bunch of loops here, which I tend to do.
It's all good. We'll close them up.
And that is the designations of sugar. And I think a lot of people aren't clear about the distinctions, the impact, and all of that sort of stuff. Like, the difference between fructose, glucose, maltodextrin, high corn fructose, or and
sugar is sugar is sugar is sugar. It impacts the body. And I always say that, well, is monk food better? Is coconut sugar better? And I say it could be. They market it for diabetics, depending on what we're talking about. But how does it affect your body? And I know that for me, sugar is sugar is sugar. It doesn't matter what they label it and who they say it's good for. It does not work for me. And it really does not work for most people. But we've been trained to have a disconnect between what our gut, what our body is telling us, and what our mind is telling us. It's absolutely shut off. And we have found ways to just justify waking up with pain in our hands. We can't sleep. That's just aging. I mean, I'm almost 50 with 3 kids. We've justified it. And really, I don't want to get into conspiracy theories. I'm not really into that. And, you make a lot of money when people are very sick and they don't realize they can actually heal themselves. I mean, the things I see people heal themselves of, let me be very clear, I'm not the healer. They heal themselves of. I always say when we get ourselves out of the way, most of the time the body will heal. Sometimes it's too chronic and it does need supplements and other things for sure. But the body is always healing itself. It's just we're constantly in the way, affecting the body's ability to heal itself. And so sugar is sugar is sugar. I just have to say that. Now, is a cookie from Costco worse than a banana? Yeah. At least a banana, I always say, you pluck it from God. It comes from a tree. It's an ingredient. It's a banana. But for those who have gut stuff, candida, that banana is going to affect you very similar to the Costco cookie because it's feeding the problems in your gut. And so this is where people get confused. I have candida, but I eat a lot of fruit, right? Or I have sugar cravings, but I eat, a lot of berries at night. Is that okay, Jen? I'm like, not really if it's feeding the problems in your gut. And so not to get too far down that rabbit hole, people get confused with that. And so that's where we help them at least unhook from the fruit if you need to, because that could be hurting you, from the cookies, from the Coca-Cola, from the Starbucks, from the cereal marketed as whole grain that is nothing more than garbage in a box. And so what the method does is it gives you the freedom. It doesn't tell you not to eat it, because I don't tell anyone don't eat it. I mean, you can't tell an addict not to do something. It's psychologically, you're going to feel deprived. So, right? Does that make sense? And so we get the body not to crave it. And that's a true story. We can get the body not to crave sugar. And then you're empowered. At least you're a choice.
So let's, I want to unpack one aspect of the sugar mystery for people, because you pointed out, say, a banana.
Yes.
And then, you know, something that's sugar and then sweeteners.
Yes.
So the model that's been kind of promoted over the last 50, 60 years is the caloric model of consumption. And when it comes to carbohydrates, it's 4 calories per gram. And people build out models of dietary stuff, but they may not understand the physiological effects of all calories aren't created equal. All carbohydrates are not created equal.
Right.
What's your opinion on, say, fruit carbs, vegetable carbs versus grains versus highly condensed sugars? Because you said a sugar is a sugar is a sugar. So are you like absolutely no consumption of any carbohydrate aspects, or what's the sugar? So I just want to qualify that for our listeners. So because a lot of people get onto, like, for example, in an extreme case, I'm a big fan of Dr. Jordan Peterson's work. He had all these inflammatory conditions. He got some weird genetic conditions.
Yes.
And he went on a completely carnivore diet, and him and his daughter both have repaired a great amount of the conditions they were suffering from. So in your opinion, is that required? Like, where does that hierarchy of sugars? Because you said a sugar is a sugar.
Thank you so much for saying that. I was talking about like fruit sugar. For people just think they can overconsume fruit all day long and they're being healthy. I get that all the time because they think they're not eating sugar. And I have to explain to them fructose is a real thing. And even though, right, the cell structure is there and they're getting some fiber, it depends on how it affects your body. So I know, and for those who can relate, I am borderline autoimmune. And this is what we teach. Tuning in module 3, understanding your body. I have my body down to a science. I teach this thing. And we teach women to understand their bodies. I know I can have about 50 grams of carbs a day. True story. After that, I get sleepy. I know I can eat sushi, which we know what's in the rice. But I believe for me, because I'm well, knock on wood, I'm well, that I can have sushi once a week. I start adding in that kind of rice, I get inflamed. And so we teach this. I can eat any vegetables I want, an entirely different carbohydrate that gets broken down. I can eat as much sweet potato as I want. But when I start getting into the white potato and the rice, for me, I'm in trouble. And so we really teach women to understand their own bodies. Everybody's body is different. And when you are not well, I will absolutely say I'm a proponent of getting most grains, if not all grains out. It's really an autoimmune protocol. All sugar, really including fruit, the way, this gentleman had said, and letting the body heal. We've been brainwashed to think that fruit is okay, that these grains, brown rice, not so much. I can't eat quinoa, and it's known as a super grain, right? Quinoa is like the all-knowing. I can't even have it. I get so sick within a half hour. And so really my message is, please understand yourself. Please do your own research. And please don't believe that what works for me or Wade is going to work for you. Everybody's body is different. And so that was really my message.
So when you're monitoring response to like the inflammatory response is essentially what you're identifying. And inflammation, for those who are listening to this podcast, is the silent killer. We're essentially rusting, which is free radical damage produced from metabolic effects, and some energetic sources create more free radicals than other ones, and that has an accelerated rusting. Like if you put your car by the seaside where there's a lot of salt, is very different than if you have your car in a high mountain desert. So because of the environment is different. There's more ions available and things like that. So
Beautiful.
are you using the inflammatory markers as a kind of a personal monitoring mechanism for your clients, and or you including things like continuous glucose monitors, which is sharing the blood sugar response, which, like, for example,
Yes,
I've seen people drink a coffee and spike their blood sugar through the roof without a gram of sugar in coffee. And then you'll see other people drink it and be fine. And we'll see massive variances between the same foodstuffs between people of different genetic predispositions. And then I would say microbiome. And then the third area is we don't actually feed our cells. We feed the bacteria, which convert our food into building blocks or energy units or waste products, and oftentimes all three. And these, overgrowth or dysbiosis also has an impact, which interrelates. So it's not just your genes, it's also the microbiome plus your reactivity. So how do you track those three components now that we have the capability of doing it?
I love that. I don't do it the way you do. And this is the way it's like, all right, get the guest off. But really, my clients are busy female professionals, no excuses. And what Wade just said, I can see them, their eyes rolling like, what did he just say? I just want to not have 3 glasses of wine when I get home after dinner. Like, it's true, right? Like after work. I've got 3 kids. I'm a single mom or widowed, and so I keep it, I literally like simple. And by that, I mean, how do you feel energetically? Do you feel like passing out about 30 minutes after you eat? How are your bowels? So I do a lot of internal. How are your bowels the next day? Are they runny? Are they hard? Are they this? Can you go? So I let them, that's number 2. Number 3, how are you sleeping? That is an indicator. And then I also will ask them if they're open to it and they're not obsessed with the scale or have, this dysmorphia with scales. The scale will tell you, and not to look for fat. If you're up 3 pounds the next day after you've eaten something, your body is retaining water, you are inflamed.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times I will ask them, because that's easy for them, do not see the scale as fat, see it as an inflammatory marker. I used to eat sushi and just have fun with this. I measured myself, I'll never forget it. For 30 days, I weighed myself every single day, morning, noon, and night. And the things I learned, sushi put 5 pounds on me. Soy sauce, the gluten and the soy, 5 pounds. And now I knew, I was like, wow, that is a no-no, right? Yeah. And so I do all those markers. For me, it really is energy. It's your bowels. What does the scale say the next day? And a lot of times I also use cravings as an imbalance. People think, we're taught cravings are something that's natural and we just all have them. And I'm like, I don't have cravings every day. Cravings are an imbalance in your body somewhere. And so I get them to run a checklist. If you're fine for 5 days and all of a sudden you have these crazy cravings for sugar or cake or wine or beer, I'm like, well, let's talk about where you could have gone off. And so for me, I'm more of it's a stepping stone process, right? We don't take people who, have high levels of autoimmune or in the middle of battling with cancer. We wouldn't be the right people, but you're generally feeling okay, but you're exhausted, right? And you've got this excess weight and you're killing yourself with HIIT workouts. And I don't knock any of these things, but really doing things that are hurting themselves. And the weight is going up. Well, now I got a problem. And so does that make sense? Like, we teach them these lifestyle changes, and we have a gut protocol. We help with leaky gut. And so we start to plug the holes.
Yes.
And then, and so we're a hole plugger.
Well, it's interesting.
Not perfect, but yes, go ahead.
We may be dating ourselves a little bit because I grew up as a competitive bodybuilding athlete, and my coach, who coached over 400 champions at every level from the highest to the lowest, would force us to do biofeedback. In other words, those exact things. Are you tired? Are you bloated? Are you sluggish? Or how was cognitive function? How was your workout strength? All those net life indicators. And
they work.
I've always used that as the foundation of all the clients I coach and myself. And then now with this quote unquote evidence-based science, which is evidence is such a subjective statement, and that's a whole semantics thing we could get into. Try to save everybody because I get into these long 4-hour conversations about consciousness and subjectivity and reality and all that sort of stuff. And that's a fun game. But for the sake of this, we're going to stay away from that right now.
Please.
Now, with this evidence-based biohacking tech, I've noticed a lot of people seem to have an inability to trust their own observational reality and require validation through an external authority or some sort of feedback device that it may or may not be as accurate as your biological feedback. Because I'm of the camp, an old school guy says, listen, we've evolved over millions, if not billions of years to produce this species. And we have a tremendous amount of feedback systems that are running all the time. And the people who seem to have the best results in virtually every field have a way of self-evaluating their own performance in whatever area that they're looking at. It's something that we had to cultivate. I was hanging out with Miss Olympia on Sunday at the biohacking conference. And so she's at the premier level of physical cosmetic development, which you're overcoming 2 evolutionary biases. 1, to build an extraordinary amount of muscle, 2, to create extreme levels of body fat reduction. And what was fascinating is how deeply tuned in to all of these things that you're talking about are. Like her awareness of herself, her awareness of the impact of food, of exercise, of a device, of like everything.
Of people, of everything. I love her. I mean, I had 3 natural births and they wanted to test me on everything. I'm like, I don't need the test. And they're like, what? I'm good. Baby's good. We spoke. And they're like, what? So I went to midwives. By the way, no judgment. I chose 3 natural births and a midwife and a doula. I just know, like, my cells are talking to me. I'm good. You know, if you need to test, I respect it. I don't do mammograms. I don't do probing. I just don't. You don't have to do what I do, but my cells talk to me and I'm really in tune. So that's how I know 50 grams. That's how I know, you know, and so, but I teach this. Yes. I teach people because when you're empowered and you know your body, see, nobody can sell you anything. You can decide if they love, which by the way, I love your supplements.
Thanks.
I don't like much of anything. I'm like, ooh, I feel it absorbing. Right. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. But my point is, I teach this. It's module 3, learning to tune in, because tests can be false positive, false negative, and you got to know yourself. It can be extremely stressful, especially for the birthday, like false positive, false negative. What's the body telling you? And so I respect the work that is out there, but that's for me, it's too far. And I know you know this. If you don't do anything we're talking about consistently, you'll never get results.
That's right.
I always say, go find whatever process works, just do it consistently and you will see results. And so most people know a lot, they just can't do it. And so I get it consistent not to eat sugar. Yeah, go ahead.
So let's move into, I think for our listeners who are like, hey, that sounds really exciting.
Sure.
I don't know if I can do this. What are these 6 specific steps that you've kind of broken apart of the evaluation process that you and your clients have used for almost 2 decades
sure.
in order to overcome these? And maybe you can outline them briefly of what they are.
30 seconds. Happy to share.
Well, the other thing is let's just go into them and then I'll interject if necessary.
You'll see I'm short and to the point, and like this is my baby.
Former New Yorker, of course.
I call it like pre-module 1. So before you can even come, shame and guilt have no place in the method.
Bingo.
Because if you shame and guilt yourself, well, then you can't do anything I'm about to share.
Correct.
So we redefine what shame and guilt are, where they came from. This isn't therapy, but you got to know that if you have shame and guilt, and I teach my 3 kids this, you've lost the lesson. And the method comes from you building on your own wisdom, from falling down and failing, what I call failing up. So you don't fall, you fail up. So shame and guilt, we reevaluate that. It's number 1 right away. And then module 1 is visualize it. So you also kind of got to know where you are. So I'm not a fan of labels, but if you're coming to us, you know, you've got some addictive qualities. And so I make you take a look at our addiction scale and just kind of know, are you a 10 where you eat a little sugar and it's game over for 5 days? Or are you at a 1, Jen, I can have it, but it's a few times a week. It's annoying me. And it helps us understand at what level your gut microbiome's out, emotional. So I make you just know where you are.
Yep.
We also have you have some goals. Again, I'm not a fan of measure it every day. I'll lose my women, but know where you're going. Do you really only have about 10 pounds of inflammation, but you think 40 need to come off? I've got a problem with that. I need to talk to you. We got to know if you're even realistic with what you say you want, right? And so being realistic is also a game changer. So it's visualize it. If you're not realistic, you're going to quit on yourself because you think this problem is solved in a 21-day eating challenge when you've been chronically fatigued for 15 years and normalize that. And so
how common is that lack of reality sensing when you're dealing with people?
90-10. People have no idea.
Why do you suppose that is?
Because we've been sold a bag of goods on take these HTC drops, take this fat this, Optivia that, Noom this. I have to undo so much damage from the mental state of just stating the reality. My program is 6 months. Okay. You hang out with us. You fall down, you get up, and even then women stay longer, but your body doesn't heal overnight. Call it a belief. I'm fine with that. I'm not Jesus Christ walking on water. It takes time. Yeah. I always say, how many years haven't you slept? And some will say a decade. And I'll go, great. And I'll take the calculator out. Decade's easy. 365 days in a year, 10 years. And they look at the number. And how long have you been with me? I've been with you 30 days. I'm like, great. 3,650, right? Depending like year versus 30 days. And people start to wake up. Wow, I've been working on this for 30 days. And I've had a problem for over 3,000 days.
Yeah.
So we just normalize where they're headed so that they don't quit on themselves. Let's visualize it. Number 2 is really my favorite. I take you food shopping. I just get you to understand labels. And I don't mean just sugar. I mean all the chemicals, all the gums, the citric acid that's really mold. And I just take you shopping and I show you aisles and items that I have vetted that don't have most of the garbage that I know you need out to get your body to start to heal. So it's clarify it. What's in your food? What's in your oils? What's in your bread? I'm sorry, bread is bread, flour is flour. Women ask, can I have almond flour? I'm like, you can have anything you want, but you're going to tell me how you feel after you
That's right.
From an almond to something you've pulverized into a flour. It's not the same thing.
I have a question. Yes. I have a question on that.
So 2 is clarify it. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. I have a question on this because
Sure. Oh,
I've always been fascinated with this and I have a theory and I'd like to know what you think of it. We know there's an inflammatory response from these sugar-laden foods. Yet despite that, people continue to go to the food that causes the inflammatory response.
Yes.
So my question is, are they addicted to the high of the sugar, or are they addicted to the cascade of chemicals that are released trying to manage the inflammation?
And now for a Bioptimizers fixed digestion tip. Supercharge your protein shake. Everyone knows protein shakes are a great way to sneak in extra protein, build more muscle, even replace meals and burn more fat. The problem is the highest quality protein typically absorbs at around 40%. One way to fix this and dramatically increase how quickly and effective your protein shake digests is to add 2 to 3 capsules of masszymes into your shake. One research study showed that pre-digested protein during a meal increased muscle growth significantly. To take advantage of this, just blend the open capsules into your shake, and within 15 minutes or less, the enzymes will have begun to break down the protein into amino acids. This can make your shakes at least 2 to 3 times more potent. Some people do this and sip on their shake while lifting to provide their muscles with a steady stream of amino acids during their workout. To save 10% on masszymes, use the code SHAKE10, that's SHAKE10, at masszymes.com. That's SHAKE10 at masszymes.com.
Could be both. And it's a ritual. It's a holiday thing.
Right.
There's love involved. The Italians, I'm all Italian, is just Sicilian, 100%. And we get there and there's 50 cakes and it's the love. And so I teach women to break that. And I teach my kids, we do not watch television and eat snacks. We don't even watch a lot of television. You just don't link that. We don't link fun with sugar. I need that broken.
That's huge. That might be the biggest.
I have to break that.
What are we jumping apart? Are we jumping ahead in the order here?
I love it. We're right there. Well, so module 3 is tuning in. You have to understand. And I share this, and I love my mother dearly, but there was a lot there, which is great because I became the founder of the method to save my life. So why do I say that? Because I'll never forget this. And I was like, write that one down. So I used to just write things down as revelations would come. I'm like, that's another step. My mother was over, God bless her. I had 2 small kids, cravings free. I don't have a lot of cravings. And I'm hanging out with her and she's talking and just doing the thing. Energy is real too. So my mother does this hovering energy, and I'm a very sensitive, believe it or not, quiet. I don't actually like a lot of attention. I love Flagstaff. I can't see my neighbors. I live on 2.5 acres. I'm glad we're not in Brooklyn, or New York, but I say it because she's talking and I'm feeling smothered. And I went to the cabinet, totally subconscious, and I started to look for cookies. My mother didn't know because my mother is not very conscious that way. And she's just talking. And I literally turned. My mother didn't even notice. She didn't notice me growing up doing this. I started to take the cookies out. I remember not eating them. I just remember going, oh my God, I'm suffocating right now. Where are the cookies to save me? It's true. And I was like, oh my God. So my thing I teach is break that, tuning in, notice it, and I make a cup of tea. It's just my thing. I don't care the weather. I pour a cup of tea. It is self-care for Jenn Edden. It's always peppermint. Mm-hmm. And so I make it, and I remember going, oh, it's going to be a cup of tea. Write that down. You can go from cravings free to not cravings free. And it was so deep in my subconscious, Wade, I literally woke up from the coma as the cookies were out, because we don't eat cookies. They were for the kids. And so you have to know also, it's so many things, but for the most part, we handle the biochemistry behind it, the gut health, but tuning in is understanding. Jen, I was good all day. Why at 4:30? Well, I don't know. And again, it's not a therapy thing, but it's just to understand, did you give all day at work and to your kids and to your career and to your husband or your partner? And come 1:30, you're exhausted and you're looking for like this hit, this energy hit, or this, most people take care of themselves with the soda. We pull it apart.
Let's talk about those combos, because,
you just pull it apart.
Chips in a pop or coffee and a pastry.
Oh yeah.
So does stacking these agents with, say, caffeine
100% addictive,
or fats,
100%,
it amplifies the biochemical
dopamine hit? Oh, you've got it. And I know you know this, but let's just share it. I read this somewhere and I already knew it for decades. I still have a McDonald's burger that I used to. It's from 2006. It's in a Ziploc. It's still alive. And when I used to do lots of talks at schools 15 years ago, I'm not a proponent of preaching. I'm a proponent of visuals. And I would go and just show it. And then they would ask what it was. It was a burger from 10 years ago. And the visuals are very powerful, as you know, versus us speaking. And they know what they're doing with the right amount of fat and chemicals. They know and sugar and salt. In fact, they've spent their lives perfecting the hook on the brain. I know, because I used to have it. Like, oh my God, I have to have a burger.
Eric Schlosser's Fast Food Nation.
Yes.
Talks
they know.
about all of the food factory companies that were in the 1970s to increase the consumption levels of current customers. And that's when we went from the little bottles of chips and bags and stuff like that up to these exponentially bigger things. So people are born nowadays, they don't know that that's just normal now. Like they never grew up without those things.
So I teach it. I always say the method in some form, really. And I say this out loud to anyone who needs to hear it. Come see me. Some version of this needs to be in schools, because it gives you the education that's not there.
If the role of the school was to actually educate your kids, and I would make an argument and I think if one does a bit of observation, that schooling has become not an education program, but an indoctrination program.
All right, Wade. All right, you're my best friend. Yeah, we did Montessori. I homeschooled when we lived on the road for a few years, when we sold everything in New York. And my kids are there now, but they're there fully awake. Yeah. So it's never what was your grade. It's so what'd you learn today?
Right.
What'd you learn? What did you observe? What lesson did you learn from meeting these new friends? Because we're all entrepreneurs. So for my husband and I, look, we're just about just live the best life you can, the healthiest life, do good on this planet, try not to leave too much of a trace, and just be a damn good person. And while you're at it, make some money. But money always comes when you do your work, your life's work, and you got your head on straight. So we teach that, and then when we're at it, we just let them go to school for the socialization. And because I'm a horrible homeschooler. So I've tried, it didn't go well. So, but listen, true story. I know we'll come back. They didn't go to school for 2 years when we lived in an RV and traveled the country. Their school was the world.
Love it.
We put them back in, all A students.
Yeah.
They were like, what did we miss for 2 years? And I'm like,
nothing.
A little math. And so, yeah, that was incredible.
So we're at number 4.
4. I love 4. Why? Because 4 is really, with all due respect, let's just say, is missing from everything I've ever seen. It's how to live this. So how do you go on vacation and not live in a box or be on a diet or go when I get home? So I'm going to eat all the chips, all the salsa, all the margaritas, be so sick when you get home. 95% of people I know need a vacation from their vacation.
Correct.
That's horrible. I go on vacation, and honestly, I love my life so much that my life is a vacation. So I don't go away a lot because I don't know. I want to go away just to see culture. Or we live in the mountains. I told you I miss the beach. I love the beach, very healing. And so I teach people, well, a vacation is your life and your life is a vacation. So, and this is what you need to look out for when you go out to eat. And this is what you have to actually ask the chef to do. You have to actually speak up because the food out there is shortening your life. Mm-hmm. And I'm not interested in eating a vacation from a vacation. I got too many important things to do. So we teach you how to live it, teach you how on an airplane, what changing air pressure does to the body. We're mostly water. People don't know why they're so messed up when they get off a plane, why they got to eat chips and drink the Coke. And I watch the rum and all the stuff they do on a plane. You destroy yourself for a week. So I teach you how to hydrate. And so we teach you how to live it. Because I don't need you good in a box. Because I could do so good on the whole 30 or this or that for 30 days, but I never can live it. I'm like, great. So we teach you life skills. How do you live this? How do you go to a party and not feel the social pressure because you're not cool drinking the wine everyone's asking you to? Have it if you want it, but just don't do it for social pressure. I don't do anything for social. So I teach live it. And then 5, honestly, is the most important because you've said it. And I know you live your life this way. You have to love your life. So love it. You have to love your life more than the hit sugar is giving you. So if your partner isn't working for you, you're lonely, you don't love your job, you don't even love your business, go change something because the sugar will always come back in if you're not in love. I'm in love with my life and sugar still comes back in. Mm-hmm. And then number 6 is my bonus because it needs to be there, is your gut health. And so we make them do their own assessment. I know Dr. Hyman, someone gave me some cool assessment. I don't assess anything. You take a look. 95% of people come. Oh, I have 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 of those leaky gut. I said, great. Well, guess what? You're not absorbing anything you're eating. And so we teach them a little bit about leaky gut and we help them in figuring that out. And that's mandatory. Otherwise, you're not plugging the holes. And so that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And when you do them consistently with support and accountability and some live coaching and a little private, it works. What a concept. It works. Women send me all these notes. My arthritis is gone. I sleep after 10 years. Why do my wrinkles? I look, my hair, forget the weight. Oh my God, I can run 10 miles. I don't have to go to the bathroom. Tears, crying. My autoimmune, again, that's a little trickier, but really, I'm not on the meds anymore. We just dial it, and it's little by little. And, anyway, so that's my thing. And it's called the Sugar Freedom Method. It's happy, lean, and free. Just find what works for you and live your best life, please. Life is so short.
So I want to, for people who
Yes.
want to engage in the program, you can catch all the information we'll have in the show notes. But I want to go into another piece. And as we know, that's when you engage in a new process, there's a process of self-discovery. There's some observation, there's obstacles, and then eventually the revelation. And then
Amen.
Usually becomes an evangelist on that point when one's life changed much in order to maintain it. I think it's important to continue to advocate it to the world because it reinforces your identity. And I would say that identity is a big aspect of who we are, how we see the world, and how we view both the past, the present, and the future. Change your identity and you change your perception of all of those things.
Wait, that was a lot you just said. That was a big one. Okay.
Now, there's identity politics, but there's also like identity superhumanness. In other words, if you identify with your best self, you have capabilities far greater than you have if you identify with your worst self. And I love the fact that you identified shame and guilt at the first side of the thing.
Mandatory.
What are the experience? I'm getting to something here. What are the experiences that you see or people tend to report as they go through the 6-month program? So maybe you can walk through what the potential expectations would be, or what typically happens. You know, there's the I eat pretty
sabotage. Good. Let's go there.
Yeah, let's do it all.
Sabotage piece. So what happens is if change happens too quick and it was too easy, people they're almost okay. So we could be addicted to problems. Can I just say that?
Oh yeah,
people don't realize you actually can be addicted and attached to your problems. And so when we support you in seeing that problems are really just challenges that you haven't figured out yet, that's not for everyone. So does everyone get results? Yes, if they are not more attached to their problems than the solution. And I come right out and say it. You're attached to your problems. We can't help you. Are you willing to detach from the problem? Yeah, go ahead.
For those who are listening.
Sorry, this is part 2 next week.
Actually identified in the 5 obstacles as to what people prevents people from healing and recovery of whatever. And this was brought to me by Dr. Michael O'Brien, who was a mentor of mine many years ago. It's got me right-sided on a variety of things.
Love it.
But you'll hear this, and this is my favorite line. I've been to all the doctors and specialists, and nobody knows what to do with me. They just can't figure it out. So there's this like exclusive, mysterious, nefarious, unusual, biochemically unreplicatable, strange state of circumstances that makes me especially screwed up. And that is a really tough identity, right? Because as long as you have it, you get attention.
Nothing will change that.
You get attention for this. Yes. And a lot of people substitute attention for love, and it's proliferating out there with the victim signaling. Who can be the biggest victim of them all? And if you take that derivative and run it down to the end, you have the absolute annihilation of society as we know it. This country was built on a meritocracy, advocacy, and that, we've got challenges. We've got problems. And together we can overcome them because we have freedom of expression, freedom of autonomy, freedom to pursue happiness, freedom to make choices. And in those choices, I can make mistakes. But biologically, I don't have the freedom to not learn from my mistakes because the consequences of sin is death. Sin means to err. It means if I continue to do the same thing over and over and not listen to the feedback mechanisms I'm getting, well, I'm guaranteed that I'm going to have, like, if I just blow through every red light and I get through 3 in a row and I'm good and I just keep going faster, sooner or later, I'm in a head-on collision or a T-bone and a smash up. The 3 lights that I didn't pay attention to just got me closer to the bigger catastrophe down the world. And I think a lot of people have not thought through this with the consequence of a victim ideology. How hard is that to break for people?
People thought we were going to be talking about sugar. Depends how much pain someone is in. It's a true story.
Okay.
I love women. Okay, I don't like seeing people in pain. Let me be very clear. But I use the analogy of a pool. You know how if you're like, oh, I'm not sure, and you jump in half-assed, for lack of a better way to say it, so you could get to the middle of the 10 feet of the pool, but you're drowning because you didn't jump in with intention. I jump in a pool with intention. I hit the ground and I shoot right back up. So I say, come with the most pain, be done, and Jenn Edden and her team will help you. But if you jumped in and you're like, oh, and you're in the middle of the 10-foot pool and you didn't hit the bottom yet, you're sucking wind and you're going to get half-assed results. So I like it when you're on the bottom of the pool because you hit the bottom and you shoot up. You're in the middle of the, and so I screen everyone that comes. They're like, oh, we're talking to you. I'm like, well, karma's a real thing. And really my reputation matters. And really you've come with, I'm your last thing you think you want to do. And I kind of got to make sure you get it. And so it's just very high integrity, my work. And so at the moment, I screen everyone. And if I'm sensing that's not the case, if the price tag doesn't get you, and it's not that it's millions, it's thousands, the price tag doesn't get you, I'm going to call you out on it. You're really not done yet. And you're not going to run your racket on me and my team that it didn't work.
Right.
Because it does work. You're not enough pain yet. And I don't wish that on anyone, but pain gets people to move. Enough pain.
Here's another thing around this, and I think this is a big issue. I think we're probably correlating on a lot of things here.
It's good.
And that is, we have substituted comfort for happiness. In that, I'm comfortable. And then we get comfortable with kind of pain, like this is okay.
Because no one's living. They're just kind of drony, and we talk about that.
And I have a belief that pain is different than suffering.
Amen.
Pain is a heightened sense of awareness that there's a feedback loop that is not desirable in your life. And it's an opportunity to course correct. But we live in a society that says pain is just something I need to avoid. I want to move out of pain and be comfortable. I want to take the painkiller. I want to check out. I know it's game over.
So pain is physical to me. It's a physical thing.
Yes.
And suffering is a mental game we play.
Correct.
Through religion and life. And I'm not knocking anything. It's a mental game. I'm not interested. Remove the mental. The body is telling us things. If you listen, you won't need your right leg amputated from type 2 diabetes, because when you were 20, your body told you something when you couldn't go to the bathroom for 10 years and you had periods that were so horrible. But we're not taught this. Doctors take a pill. But I usually always ask, well, what was it like when you were 15? I'll always ask a woman, oh, wow, it's been going on about 15, 20, 30 years, huh? And we got to have a conversation. It's really just what's been taught. I teach my kids. Bowels are a normal comment. How are your bowels? Are they good? Because the bowels are for me, like if you saw Dune, the spice, the worm, like it's the everything. The bowels tell me everything. So we'll just have a bowel check as a family. My husband can't stand it. I don't care. How you doing? You good? Your bowel's good? Okay, you're good. Because I had a kid that came out very sick, my third kid, and I paid tens of thousands of dollars, all these specialists. She's fine. And she has cradle cap at 2. She passes out after breakfast. I just couldn't figure it out. It was too close to me. And then I figured out she's got a gluten sensitivity. She had leaky gut. She's highly sensitive to food dyes and chemicals. It took me years. And doctors like, oh, it's just cradle cap. Oh, kids just pass out after they eat. No, they don't. And my kid gets rashes. And so we figured it out. She's very highly sensitive to many things. Point is, it's not taught. And if we teach sensitivity as parents, and I don't knock anyone because you can only teach what you know yourself, but teach yourself and then you teach your kids. And as far as I'm concerned, the trajectory's just changed on where this country is going, which is for another day.
Right. Yeah. So, well, that's sensitivity trainings. It's funny that we expect everyone to calibrate to our sensitivity, but we're not actually inverting that and being sensitive to our own self. That's what I find. Like
it's not taught. 70s and 80s. God bless our parents. I mean, I'm almost 50. It was finish what's on your plate. Yes, you're eating lamb. Mom, lamb doesn't make me feel good. What does that even mean? Finish your plate or you can't get up.
That's right.
But I don't
And
need
go
to.
out and play. And go out and play and be home for dark. Get out of the house. Run around.
Brooklyn,
burn off whatever.
My mother didn't know where I was.
Yeah.
9-10 hours. I shouldn't even have been in those neighborhoods. Somebody was watching out for me in Brooklyn.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? That's another thing.
Forget about it. God.
I've noticed, and people have asked me, why do people the lack of person? So what I essentially hear is that you have a systematized a way of personal observation and responsibility in inserting behaviors and actions that bring accountability to those feedback loops and course correcting with behaviors that lead to positive feedback loops instead of negative feedback loops. Would that be fairly accurate?
Wow. I was like, can I frame that? Yes.
Sure. So
it's beautiful.
I have this theory, because we're going to go there. Like, I'm constantly asked about the biochemical this, the data this, the scientific periodical studies of this and stuff. And then there's this tremendous amount of complication to things, which create these kind of open loops of, I need more information. Is that documented science?
100%. And then we don't do anything because we're stuck in that.
Yes, this
That's something else.
And
it's a quest
paralysis of analysis.
Do anything with it, right? Those people,
right.
With all due respect, if you're listening, go do something with it now. Don't take another course. I need it implemented now.
So that's so we're setting this up because right now, there are people listening to this call that have been suffering for decades. They're sitting there going, yeah, I want to do that. You know what? I'm going to go jump to another. You know what? I need to listen to that next podcast from Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so because I want to see what they said. Or this report said that that's not true. So which is it? I want you to give your best pitch right now of why someone needs to cannonball off the high dive right now. If you're struggling with sugar, what do they do right now?
Acknowledge you have a problem. Most people learn that and then go take some action.
And what's that action?
Hire one of us.
Right. And where do they find you?
Oh, great. Oh, love that. Jenn Edden, you have to know, literally the way we've been talking and how simple I teach. My Instagram is Jenn Edden. My Facebook is Jenn Edden. My website is jenneddencoaching.com or jennedden.com. I am Jenn Edden. And there you have 3 choices. You want to book a call? Do you want to watch my class where I detail, no fluff, these 6 steps? Do you want to learn about inflammation? It's very simple. I need people, because confusion's a cop-out in my world. I need you to have very simple solutions and then choose one. See, because if you have too many choices, you get paralyzed. And that's why I don't give a lot of choices. So it's one of those. I've got a freedom club now. Even if you don't want to invest in these thousands, great. But like $400, you can keep my method, which I used to sell for almost $2,000. Like, there's no excuses anymore. But what I want to say is, can we please just acknowledge we have a challenge? I don't even like the word problem. I acknowledge I have a challenge. I don't get in my head about it. And then I go, what do I want to do about it? And then I just take one step. I literally, that's all I do. Sometimes it gets me in trouble. Sometimes it doesn't. It mostly doesn't get me in trouble. So I keep doing that. I have a problem. I have a challenge. What do I want to do about it? And then I just do one thing. It's like growing up, Q*bert, right? I love Q*bert, by the way. I was like a Atari freak. But really, people go, what should I do after that? I go, I don't know. You played the game Q*bert. You had to jump on the next square to actually know where to go. So please don't worry about 20 years from now. How about from listening to Wade and I, you just make one decision. And from that decision, you can make another decision. And then from your decisions, your life changes. The only way your life doesn't change is if you don't make decisions. It's a true story. Your life will not change if you do not make a decision from listening to us today. Make a decision. Anyway, that's my sugar busting tip. Just make a decision and just trust it. And no shame, no guilt. You know, people ask me, I'll end on this. People ask me, where did the method come from? Why do you know all this and I don't? And I said, well, when I was on the floor for the 100 millionth time, eating the sugar on a Saturday, when I was so good Monday through Friday, I picked myself up off the floor and I said, Monday's coming. I wanted to do something a little different by next Friday. And so I just never stopped until I got to here and I went, oh, well, there you go. Most people stop right before the finish line. I just didn't stop. And so if you listen, please just don't stop. Just please don't stop. I just didn't stop. 1,000,001 times. And I'm like, that's the solution. There you go. It's these things in a row, 6 of them compounded. Yeah, I could go all day, but I won't.
From Atari to personal autonomy. I love it. The website is jenneddencoaching.com. All of the links are included here. Amazing. If you or someone you know are suffering from uncontrollable cravings due to an inflammatory response from sugar and all of the programming that we touched on today, briefly, I encourage you to check out Jenn's site. She's, as you can tell, fired up, and we love that energy and excitement, enthusiasm, because it shares a passion that is developed about a mission, about changing people's lives. And I know when you change someone's life, there's no drug that's better. And so there's no amount of money, there's no amount of fame, there's no amount of status, there is no amount of biochemical release. And that gives me hope, because that means that we are not a single human. We are a collective family of humans throughout time, all our ancestors in the past, all the generations to come. And your decisions today echo through time far beyond the time that we're here, and making the difference is what we're all about. So thank you today for joining us. And for all our listeners on the Awesome Health Podcast, if you liked it, loved it, please share it. Tell us about it. If you hated it, can't stand us, I'd like to let us know before you go. In any case, we love you. We love sharing this. We want to thank Jenn again today for just giving us so much fun. An hour flew by really quick. This is Way T. Lightheart from the Awesome Health Podcast. For all of us at Bioptimizers, to you, have yourself an awesome day. So long.
And now for a Bioptimizers fixed digestion tip: how to get away with eating sugar. Hey, look, sugar is normally one of the worst things for you. But let's be honest. I mean, we all cheat from time to time. And here's a little trick that will ensure your body benefits from the sugar. Now, before you eat or drink anything sweet, take 5 to 8 capsules of P3OM. The patented strain in the formula devours sugar so fast it literally doubles in the body every 20 minutes in the presence of sugar. That doesn't mean that you can or you should eat a bunch of sugar or sit around all day doing that. But on the days that you do cheat, or you go after one of those maybe meals that you wouldn't normally do, this ensures that you get something in your gut that eats the sugar. And it's not going to feed the bad guys or spike your blood glucose nearly as much. So to learn more about P3OM and its sugar-devouring and protein-digesting properties and how it can transform your gut and metabolism, go to www.bioptimizers.com.
Thank you for listening to the Bioptimizers Awesome Health Podcast. You can find more information at bioptimizers.com.